Quick question. When did you stop dreaming as big as you did in the past? Not when you got realistic, not so much, when did you grow up? When did you stop dreaming at the level you actually deserve or your capability deserves is probably a better way to say it. Because here's what I've noticed after working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and high performers over the last 2 decades, going into three now. The dream doesn't disappear. Cultural gravity doesn't kill it. It does something a little more subtle and a little more dangerous than even that. It actually shrinks the container. I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach. This is Spencer Uncensored episode 118, and this is the first deep dive in our Drift to Drive series. Last week, we introduced the 4 factors that move you from living below your potential into actually closing the gap. So that's going to be dream, desire, disturbance, decision. And then today, we're going to go deep in on that first one. So we're going to talk about the dream, all of which is here in Momentum and Mastery. So we're going to start something from the natural world to kind of kick this off and kind of get our mind wrapped around this whole discussion. And it might help reframe how you're going to see all this right now. So have you ever heard of the concept of it's not even a concept, it's a reality of a plant that is root bound, right? Where it's not able to grow any further than where it's at because it's bound to the pot that it's in. A root bound plant, it's not dying. It's not a dying plant, really. It's not even a sick plant necessarily. It's actually a healthy plant that has been growing exactly the way it was designed to grow. Now, stick with me for a second because this does, in fact, play into this whole thing. The roots, they're expanding, they're developing, they're reaching outward the way healthy roots would. But at some point, those roots hit the walls of the container, the pot that it's in. And when they do, something interesting seems to happen. They don't stop growing. They start growing in circles. They follow the shape of the container instead of the continuing expansion outward. And so the plant above the soil, right, the visible part, the pieces that we actually see, the fruit, the growth that everyone can see, it starts to stall. Not because the plant's broken, but because the container was too small. This is exactly what cultural gravity does to your dream. It doesn't kill the dream. It contains it. It puts a wall around it at whatever level feels safe, whatever feels reasonable and or realistic in the environment. It does all of that to make you feel safe and comfortable where you currently are. And over time, you stop noticing the wall because the circling roots start to feel like the natural shape of the thing. The container starts to feel like the full size of what's possible. In this book, I actually share a story of what we call Henry the Oak Tree. It was one of those little propeller trees or oak trees that had the little seeds that had a little propeller and they came down like a little propeller. It landed one day in one of my wife's little potting plant pots and on the back deck. And it sprung up a sprig. And so I told my wife, I said, leave it there. Let's let it grow. I think it might be a tree. And it was. It turns out to be an oak tree. Well, I had to move it from that little pot to a bigger pot. Then I moved it one more time into a really big pot until eventually we moved to another house altogether that we actually planted it in the ground. That plant never grew more than about 3.5 to 4 feet the whole time it was in the pot. The minute I put it into the ground, that next year it shot up several feet. And today, 15 years later, it's standing so big that the current owner has a tire swing hanging off of it. It made a big difference when it was taken out of the pot and put into an unlimited resource so that it could do what it's designed to do. So if you're still tracking with me, you're still with me, then I need you to hear this. The root-bound plant doesn't know it's root-bound. It's just growing. You're just growing. It's going to do what plants do. It doesn't know what 3 feet away the garden bed, that's with unlimited soil like Henry the oak tree, where those same roots could run as deep and as wide as the capability of the plant actually allows. It has no idea. So you don't always know you're root bound either. You're just living. You're just running your business. You're just making decisions all inside of a container. The one cultural gravity probably built around you. And the container feels so familiar by now that you probably stop questioning whether it's even the right size. It's like, I'm just growing, I'm doing, I'm living. I heard a quote from Edgar Allan Poe. He said something that kind of stuck a long time ago. He said, "Those who dream by day are cognizant of many things which escape those who dream only by night." That's the person that's going to dream consciously. The one who deliberately imagines the life and business they're building toward while they're fully awake. They're going to see possibilities that the person waiting for inspiration, they never see. Because daydreaming isn't a waste of time. Daydreaming is conscious rehearsal. That's the reframe we need to hold on to. It's your mind practicing a reality it hasn't produced yet. It's the dream becoming familiar before it becomes actual. Cultural gravity, first attack. First thing it's going to do on the dream factor is to convince you that daydreaming is probably irresponsible, that you should focus on what's in front of you, that vision without execution is just fantasy, right? And because of that, of course, then you're just going to stop rehearsing the bigger reality. You stop letting the dream run. You manage it down to whatever size feels safe enough to emit it out loud. Now, if you don't know who T.D. Jakes is, you should check him out. T.D. Jakes is a pastor in Texas. He said something one time I wrote down when I took notes for this particular topic. He said, "God doesn't make a chair or a table. He made the tree. And it's up to us to imagine what to do with that tree." The raw material's out there. The capability is there. The roots are there. But what you decide to build from what you've been given, that's your dream. That's your responsibility. So cultural gravity is going to answer that question for you if you don't answer it for yourself. And it will always answer smaller than you're actually capable of. Here's what a lot of people get wrong. The size of the dream is not arrogance. This is going to hit some people today. The size of the dream is a signal. If the size of your dream doesn't make you at least a little uncomfortable, if it doesn't sit just outside of your currently perceived capacity, it's not actually a dream, it's just a plan. And plans are useful. We talk about them all the time. It's part of our framework. But plans don't produce drive. We're talking about going from drift to drive, right? Dreams that scare you a little bit produce drive. Dreams that require more than you currently have, more than you currently know, more than you currently see how to even get there. Those are the dreams that activate the other three factors, because you can't get comfortable with a dream that size, and you can't drift toward a dream that's uncomfortable. That takes drive. Now, let's hit this right on the head for the day, because it's one of the most effective weapons cultural gravity uses specifically against the dream factor. And I'm not going to skip it. So at some point in your life, maybe many people attached a moral judgment to the size of your ambition. They made wanting more feel like greed, like it was selfishness, like you were somehow taking something away from someone else by wanting more for yourself. And that judgment didn't just affect your behavior. It got inside your dream, and it made you smaller in private, not just in public. It made you feel like you needed to justify the size of what you wanted before you were allowed to want it. I'm here to tell you that's not wisdom. That's cultural gravity using other people's limitations as a weapon against your personal potential. I know that's a little bit, but this is Spencer Uncensored. Guys, the abundance versus scarcity conversation, it's a deep one, and we'll probably give it its own episode eventually. But for right now, I just want you to hear this. Wanting more is not greed. Building bigger is not selfishness. Growing your dream is not taking something away from anyone. In fact, the version of you that is fully expressed, that has closed the gap between your potential and your output, that version of you produces more value, more impact, and more genuine generosity than the version of you that kept the dream small to avoid that freaking judgment. Don't let anyone else's scarcity become the ceiling for your dream. Let's talk about it. I, let's talk about it. It's something underappreciated in the conversation about dreaming bigger. Let's kind of move this along. You have to touch your dream. So Ed Mylett, I wrote this down some time ago too. If you don't know who Ed Mylett is, by the way, you should probably check him out. Right, The Power of One More is a great book. Max Out, great stuff. Right. So he says it this way, and he's totally right. You have to get in proximity with the thing before it feels real enough to pursue. So not just imagine it from a distance. I don't want you to just surf the internet. I don't want you to just look at pictures of dream vacations and big houses and nice, and I don't want you to do it that way entirely. You have to actually get near it. You got to like visit the place, have the conversation with the person who's already there, walk into that room, sit at that table, feel what it feels like to be in the environment of the thing you're building toward. Proximity is power. That is a quote from Tony Robbins. And the reason proximity is power is not primarily about who you meet or what connections you make, although those do matter. It's about what becomes normal when you're around it. Because the dream can only grow as large as what feels possible to you. And what feels possible to you is almost entirely determined by what you've been actually exposed to. I trust that makes sense. If you've never been in a room where someone is doing what you want to do at the level you want to do it, the dream will always feel slightly out of reach, like something that happens to other people in other circumstances. This is one of the reasons why we do live events, because when I get you into the same room with other people that are at a higher level than you or doing what you want to be doing, you end up seeing it as a possibility that then opens up the path for you to create even more drive. When you get into proximity, when you actually touch the dream, it can shift. Everything shifts. It stops being a fantasy and starts being a destination. It stops being other people's reality and starts to be a preview of your own. Here's the question underneath all of this that we're going to sit with. Does your dream develop a legacy? Not just results and not just revenue, which, by the way, those are two of the biggest reasons people come work with us. When they come to an Unshakable Weekend event, or when they come to an Unshakable Business Intensive, or when they even get into the Unshakable Edge program with us, they're looking for results. They're looking for revenue. But before we strip all that back, we have to talk about not just a business that's going to run without you. We have to talk about a legacy, something that outlasts the season you're currently in, something that requires more than what you currently have to complete. It's going to be something that the version of you at the end of your life will look back on and then know exactly that you built what you were put here to build. This is one of the reasons why we have what's called an anchor goal. Again, another concept that we do in the book. Most people's dreams are sized to their lifetime at best. So the dreams that produce the most drive, the dreams that produce, the most drive, the ones that really get you going, the dreams that cultural gravity has the hardest time containing, by the way, those are the ones that exceed a single season. Those are going to be ones that require you to grow beyond what you currently are. The ones that can't be completed by staying where you are. So if your dream fits comfortably inside your current life, it's probably not even a dream. It's just a version of the dream cultural gravity allowed you to keep. It's the container. It's the pot that you're in. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do before next week's next episode of Spencer Uncensored. I need you to repot yourself. I can't imagine it's comfortable for a plant when you pull it out of its pot and aerate its roots and then put it in a much more abundant area. It's not going to be comfortable at first, but it doesn't take very long before those roots start to realize, wow, look at all this oxygen. Look at all these nutrients, right? So I'm going to need you to repot yourself. And I don't want you to really just do it metaphorically. Literally, find one place, find a conversation, one environment, one experience that exposes you to a bigger vision than the one you're currently operating inside of. A room where people are doing what you want to do at a level you haven't reached yet. That's why masterminds are a really good idea. Maybe read a book that's going to stretch you out a little bit into what you believe is actually possible. A conversation with someone who's living inside the dream you've been keeping small. Folks, as an example, I read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, not because I plan to run ultra marathons, ladies and gentlemen, but it was a process or a conditioning exercise to stretch out my mind on what my body is capable of. That's an example. Another example is that my wife and I, every year, we go somewhere to do planning trips to plan the following year. We almost always are in some sort of an opulent environment, whether that was New York City, whether that was Naples, Florida. The first one we ever did, which we didn't have a whole bunch of money, so we went to Asheville to the Biltmore Estate. You go where there's money to do one thing: touch the dream. Growth is always going to happen when there's a bigger mission. And the mission can only be as big as the dream you're willing to hold. Take this with you. Dreams over drama. The question isn't what's happening around you. The question is what's driving you. And if the answer is anything smaller than the full expression of what you're actually capable of, then cultural gravity, it's already been at work. So the dream has to expand before anything else in the drift to drive framework can move. If you think about it, you can't build a desire around a dream that doesn't actually move you. You've heard me say this 100 times before. If it doesn't juice you, it will not move you. You can't get disturbed by a gap that doesn't even scare you. You can't make a real decision about a future that doesn't feel worth committing to. It's going to all start with a dream. And the dream has to be bigger than the container you're currently sitting in. You can go to momentumandmastery.com. That's what I would love for you to go do. Momentumandmastery.com. Grab a copy of the book if you haven't yet. The entire dream framework, along with the other 3 factors and the full mastery side of the equation, it's in there. Free plus shipping right now. And take the free Defiant assessment also. You can go do that at theunshakablesecrets.com. It takes literally 3 to 5 minutes. It'll show you which patterns run in your mastery side and where cultural gravity has the most leverage over your business specifically. Do me one last favor. If you got value out of this today, I would love it if you would subscribe right now. If you haven't yet, hit the button below. Share this with someone else who also needs to expand their dream. Next week, we're going to be hitting the second factor, which is desire. And specifically the difference between what you think you should want and what you actually want. And why that difference is costing you more than you realize. I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach. Stay defiant, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Keep well, keep moving forward.